Thank you for joining us. Today we'll wrap up all that we've covered since mid-July. Where has the time gone? Rick and Jim will summarize key points made throughout this series and offer some final thoughts. As they have pointed out so well, estate planning is essential for every single one of us. It's a blessing to you and your family because it prevents the bulk of your estate being eaten up by taxes. It's also a significant blessing to the charities and nonprofit organizations you choose to include as beneficiaries. Ardwood is one of the charitable nonprofit organizations we hope you'll consider as you create and/or review your estate plan. Donors are invaluable to our work. Your contributions enable us to provide all of our Christian Science nurses training and care services, as well as events like this one. You bring out the best in us, and we sincerely thank you. Just the other day, an inspired speaker I often listen to described giving this way. He said, "You can give without loving, but you can't love without giving." I just love that. Love inspires us to give freely and straight from the heart. I'm quite sure all of us want more of that in our lives. I'd also like to add an important personal observation after doing this for a while. A lawyer is often not a specialist in long-term care insurance like Jim Maher, or a specialist in estate planning the way Rick Bailey is. As in any profession, one should be wise about contacting the right person for the job. I've seen many instances in which the donor's attorney, often a generalist, did not have the experience or expertise to understand the nuances of more sophisticated estate planning. And in so doing, they discourage their clients from availing themselves of their best options. In the case of your estate, whether it's Rick or Jim, you want to be working with the right professionals. I just put that out there. Finally, the content shared today is only informational and is not intended to be legal advice. A replay of this presentation will be available on our website tomorrow morning. And now, let me reintroduce Rick Bailey and Jim Maher. Rick Bailey is the founder and chairman of CAMUS and is one of the most highly renowned estate planners in the United States. As a certified financial planner, or CFP, with a master's degree in accountancy and taxation, as well as a Juris Doctorate, or JD, Rick Bailey is a highly valuable asset to private clients, CPAs, attorneys, financial advisors, and life insurance professionals for his expertise in advanced estate planning and case design. Jim Maher is a certified senior advisor and a broker consultant specializing in Medicare. He's also a certified long-term care insurance strategist. Jim has talked with more than 1,200 Christian Scientists since our first webinar last October 2020, answering innumerable questions about Medicare, long-term care insurance, and estate planning. He has been a tremendous blessing to our field. And from what he's told me, he's enjoyed meeting and working with each one of you. As we begin, please feel free to ask questions by using the Q&A icon below at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will answer a few questions today and the rest on Thursday during our final Q&A session. So now, please join me in welcoming Rick Bailey and Jim Maher.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I can tell you, Jim and I have enjoyed speaking. It's hard to believe it's been 6 months, but it's one as we kind of go through today. Today's going to be a good recap of what we've talked about, but also helping to connect some of these dots so that as you're going through your plan, the plan becomes yours. The planning really becomes what you want it to be, not what somebody else just puts together for you. It really is a team effort in getting the plan set up the way that you would like it to be. As we go through the planning, I want you to think about who you focus on in your planning. And there's really 3 key areas that we want to make sure that you're planning the right way. One is to plan for you and or your spouse. The focus should be to, how do we need to take care of you? What is it that you want for you and your spouse during your lifetime? And then how do you plan for the rest of your family? It's there again, it comes back to you. It comes back to your goals and objectives for both you and your spouse, for your family. And finally, you can plan for others or a charity. So as you start looking at the planning, it really becomes one that you need to take each step. Don't jump in and take it all at once, because that can be a little bit overwhelming. But I did hear it at one point, as you start going through and plan for you and your family. When you plan for yourself, you're going to plan for your lifetime. You're going to plan for your retirement. You're going to plan for your long-term care. If there's anything else, any money left, even if it's just $1 that's going to go to somebody else, now we want to plan for them. And so it really takes on whatever you want it to be. And we've talked about this. I think I've had this slide in every presentation over the last 6 months. It's all based on your goals. As you start looking at your planning, we want to make sure that we understand your goals. My goals don't matter. Jim's goals don't matter. It's what are your goals? What do you see for retirement? What do you see for your family? What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? And long-term care, planning for that is really making sure that you're taken care of. But as we go through this, I work with clients that really, live way beyond their means. And I have others that I start talking to that will live well under their means. That they, it really comes back to making sure that it's accounted for the right way. And all of that is based on you. So when we start looking at planning for you, I'll throw out the word estate planning. With estate planning, I really want you to understand it's more than just documents. The documents really are just the memorialization of what you want to plan for. So you need to put in your thoughts, your goals. I just reviewed somebody's estate plan. This is somebody that I would say is somewhat sophisticated, has a great background in legal planning. And they've had their estate planning documents now in place for the last 11 years. I went through them, and lo and behold, they were wrong. It was one where if he passed away, his wife was cut out of all of the business assets, which were significant for their retirement, didn't go to her. They went to their kids, because it was set up by some attorneys that didn't stop and think what were the ramifications. And so as I showed him that, he went a little bit pale, because he realized if anything had happened in the previous 11 years, his wife would not have had the retirement that they had envisioned. And so we want to make sure that everything's done right. It's more than the documents, but the documents are important, but we've just got to make sure it's done right. When you look at your planning, we've got to start with the foundation. And when we're setting up your foundation of your plan, think about this as an umbrella that really goes over all of your planning, so that what is in place is going to happen. If you don't think it through each step, you're not going to know, really what happens at every step that we go through. And what I mean by that is we start looking at a properly designed estate plan. First of all, we want to set up, probably a revocable living trust. Most states, especially if you're in states like California, New York, some of those states, probate can be extremely expensive and very, very time consuming. Most probates that I see in California, 2 years is a short probate. So your spouse, your kids, your grandkids can have that tied up in the court system, for years. And guess who's paying that bill? It's coming out of the money that you wanted to give to your kids. So we want to create efficiency and have a trust that is set up to make sure that we avoid probate. They're, again, properly designed and properly executed. But more importantly, let's get into the why we're doing this. Well, the why is we want to make sure that you are in control of your estate, your assets, as long as you can, as long as you're mentally capable to handle your affairs. If it's set up right, you're going to have complete control as long as you want. But we know at some point, all of us are going to get to that point. We need some help. And as we need that help, whether it's because of a long-term care situation, whether that's from a mental capacity issue, or if we've passed away, we want to know who's going to step in. And so as you see there, it's who's the next trustee, who's the executor of your estate. Now, we want to make sure you also understand, because I think a lot of times we think this is for when we get old. And I'm not going to define what old is, because that's a moving target. What I thought I was old when I was 18, I'm realizing wasn't that old. Yeah. But you start looking at it. If you have kids, if you pass away, who's going to be the guardian for your children? If you don't set that up, then guess who gets to decide? It's a judge. It's in front of a court. The court now has control of who has your kids, who controls the money for your kids, and it's all reported back to the judge. The court's overseeing that. Again, you're paying the bill. That's money that's going to lawyers, to judges, to other workers employed by the court system that are going to watch your kids and use up that money that maybe not in the way that you wanted to. So this isn't just for when you get older. It's if you have things that need to be taken care of, your family, assets, those types of things. We want to make sure everything's buttoned up and working the way that you want. Once we have this, now start thinking about that legacy. What is it that you want to be remembered for? Do you want to be remembered for the person that passed on a problem? Or do you want to be remembered as somebody that helped solve the problems? Encourage, and when you're passing on some of your wealth, whatever it is, to your kids and grandkids, put some stipulations on there, put some recommendations on there. Make sure that money is used in a way that you're encouraging the behavior that you want. If you want to encourage them to go to school, go to college, think about setting up, provisions in your plan that encourage college, encourage trade schools, whatever it is. You want to be able to pass on more than just money. If you just open the wallet and hand the kids the money, the grandkids the money, without any recommendations of how to use it, it probably is not going to be used the way that you want it to.
That's right.
Have you seen that, Jim?
Yeah, it's gone normally. If you have an issue spending money, I'm sure your children and grandchildren will help you out there, Rick, right? You've seen that. If you don't stipulate how that money is to be spent or what it's to do with, I see it all the time, right? It goes away quickly on things that are important to them that don't make sense really in the long term. So
yeah, and I don't care. Age doesn't matter. I can tell you most trusts that I review will say the kids are going to get a third of it when they're, say, 20 or 21, a third when they're 25, and a third when they're 30. Adjust those ages a little bit, but I'm not far off. And if you think about that, well, they didn't blow it once. They had 3 shots to blow it.
Yeah, by age 30, 2/3 of it's gone, and they're not sure what to do with the other third, right?
Yeah. And go back and look at all those that win the lottery. Most people that win the lottery within 2 years are bankrupt.
Yeah.
because they weren't taught how to use the money. They weren't encouraged to use it the right way. It was monopoly. It's free money, and if free money gets spent, a whole lot different than earned money. So we want to make sure that as you pass on that legacy, that you're doing it the right way. There again, it's your legacy to pass on. What do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah.
Finally, we want to make sure when we're doing a properly designed plan, let's make sure that we're reducing the amount that's going to Uncle Sam. And there's, most people understand income tax. And I can tell you, we're about to see the largest increase in taxes in our lifetime. That's going to be passed in this next tax bill that's coming. And that's going to affect income tax. Most people haven't come across estate tax, but if the estate tax right now has an estate tax of 40% for those that it applies to. There's also, if you want to pass things from you to your grandkids, so that you're skipping a generation, there's generation skipping tax. All of these taxes we want to address. And we, for many of clients, they'll come in scared of taxes, and we can easily solve the problem, or it may not even be a problem. But we just want to make sure that that's addressed as we go through, and that we have a properly designed plan that's doing what it needs to take care of you. And then we're ready to pass it on to, your kids, your grandkids, your favorite charities, whoever that legacy goes to, will address that. As we also look at taking care of you, it's planning for long-term care. And so as you look at this, and Jim and I've talked about this before, long-term care is not a place or a condition. It's a life-changing event.
Yeah.
And
it really is, Rick. It's funny because we were talking before, and I just had a real good friend of mine call me from Southern California, and her mom is trying to take care of her friend's stepfather right now, who had a massive stroke 2 weeks ago, and called me and says, what do we do? We don't know what to do. They were non-Christian scientists, but they're in the hospital, and then the hospital says it's time for him to move. And they're like, well, where do we move him? What do we do? And he had a pretty severe stroke. And she's like, Jim, I don't know how to pay for this. What money do I use, right? What do I do? We were always taught, and he's 74, so he's pretty young still. What do we do? We really didn't plan. What money do we use, and how do we pay for care? I mean, I must get that 30 or 40 times a year from adult children. This just happened to be from the wife and my friend down there. It's sad, Rick, because it's not hard to put a plan together, right? It's really not. I think people procrastinate and think, well, it's not going to happen to me, especially guys. We think like that, and I'll get around to it. And then life happens. Things happen. You spend money. You go, gee, I'm not worried about that. But it really doesn't impact you as much as it impacts, right, your family. What about them? I always tell guys, it's really not about you. It's about your spouse, your adult children, your grandchildren, how that impacts them and changes their lives. I mean, this poor lady right now, she goes, Jim, I don't know how to turn left or to turn right, Rick. She goes, I don't know what money to use. How should I pay for this care, right? And as we know, long-term care, right, custodial type care is not covered by Medicare. It's just not. And people think, gee, is it covered by Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal, whatever they call it, right? Adult children don't know. And it's sad to have to tell them, listen, you're going to have to write a check. Somebody's going to have to write a check. And they're thinking, well, we're going to bring him home, right? And I go, well, you got to get a hospital bed. Who's going to take care of him? Who's going to feed him, change him, things like that, Rick. And all of a sudden life hits. And if they haven't done any planning, now they're invading monies that they didn't intend to use for care. They intended to use for their children, giving to charities, whatever it is. And that changes everything just because they failed to plan. That's all. Some type of plan.
Yeah. And I think you hit a couple big things in there. It's setting up a plan, but it's also setting up a plan that is there to help you when that happens. One of the biggest things that I've come across in my career is I'll get the call. I don't even know who to call.
Right.
You know, we've got a situation, we've got a long-term care situation. Who do we call? And luckily I've had contacts over the years where I keep them in my contact list, just so it's somebody for them to call and understand what the options are. Everything from just help at home, from cleaning to home health care, to whatever it is, just so that there's somebody there, an advocate that you can talk to. And I think that's a big key.
That is a key. So people always talk about what is long-term care. And it's funny, Rick, I was thinking about when you work, it's pretty easy to tell, listen, if I'm disabled and I can't perform the substantial duties of my occupation, right, I'm disabled. Well, what happens when you're no longer working, right? How do they tell if you're disabled? So the long-term care industry came out with, well, there's things called activities of daily living. And you can see on the little pictures here, transferring is getting into or out of a bed, having issues with toileting, needing some assistance bathing and dressing, eating, continence, some type of cognitive impairment. That's how they tell you if you're impaired, right? When you're no longer working. You can still be working too, but it's so important that people understand, boy, once these things happen, I very rarely ever see anybody recover, Rick. It's long-term, it's chronic, it doesn't change, it gets worse. If anything, it does not get better. So that's kind of how they judge the activities of daily living, to tell you, for example, if I do need some assistance, Medicare is not going to pay for this, right? We know that. Medicare doesn't. If you don't have some type of plan, that's why we're going to show you in a minute here one of the new asset-based plans Rick and myself have been advocating, and why I think they're so different, right, than the old type policies, spend all your money, use it or lose it type policies, Rick.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is having part of that. It's not only having a plan, but having the right kind of plan.
Right. Yeah.
But it's having that help. If there again, we just went through this with my wife's father-in-law, or stepfather. And with him, I mean, he's needed care, for the last probably 2.5, 3 years. And as it progressed, my mother-in-law was the one taking care of him, kept him at home as long as as it could. But there were times where she just needed help. And we looked at it. We would step in as much as we could, from the kids. But it's also, I mean, you start looking at it, it really is, somebody needs help. How much help can we give?
Right.
And, I think this is, as you really look at this, if you need help, if you need care, your life is not going to end.
It's because it's not about you, right? This next slide is going to show it's about them. Someone else's lifestyle is going to end. Just like telling you about my friend's stepfather down in Southern California. I mean, they're panic mode, Rick. They go, gee, I don't, like you said, I don't know who to call, what to do. So you try and assist them, say, here's some home care services. But she goes, you know how expensive they are? I go, I do. That's why a lot of people can't stay home. They end up going to a facility because it's less costly than staying at home. And she goes, we have a set amount of money. I don't know whether to use IRA money. We had some money set aside in a CD to take trips. And I go, well, we can figure that out, or I'd refer them to you, quite honestly, so that you can advise them. But it's not about you. It's about your family, your loved ones. We've all been through it. I took care of my father, who passed away at 102. And sooner or later, things happen. Just things happen. And like I said, that impacts not only me, it impacts my wife, my adult children. It impacts everybody, it really does.
Well, I think when you talk lifestyle, there again, going back to my mother-in-law, she couldn't travel. So those that were out of town, she wasn't seeing her grandkids. Even when we were in town helping, we didn't get to spend time with her. Mm-hmm. It was one we were spending time helping.
Yeah.
And it changed the dynamics and her lifestyle. She couldn't travel until he passed away. She couldn't take a trip. She couldn't go see anybody. She couldn't, she couldn't go see her friends. Her friends had to come to her house.
Yeah.
There again, people will step up. It's just, can we do better? And we're going to be in that, helping, but are we providing the care or managing the care? I think that's a big key.
Rick, you know what? That's so true. I tell people, isn't it better just to supervise care than have to worry about providing care and who's going to come in and what grandchild's going to impact an adult son or daughter is going to come in and do that. You're absolutely right. No, I think we've got a couple slides here showing some alternatives, right? Instead of the old-fashioned way of self-funding, right? The first option pretty much everybody has right now. If you haven't done any planning, this is it, right? You're self-funding. Friends, down Southern California, they're self-funding. They just don't know which out of that their nest egg there, Rick. They don't know, should I use my CD money? Do I use my IRA money? I know one thing, they're going to spend the money, and that's already scaring her. Well, what are we supposed to do? Well, how long does he live, right? And what happens if I run out of money spending on him? The second,
I think that also really comes into when you see that cash flow crisis. There again, we're taking care of the person that needs care. What about the well spouse?
Yeah.
What cash flows left for the well spouse?
Right. And how many times, Rick, have you seen that the well spouse at home gets sick, right? An illness reoccurs. I've seen so many instances of that where the well spouse is taking care of the sick spouse and they become sick again because of all the stress, the 24/7 worrying constantly. It never ends, right? It just doesn't.
Yeah.
This next option, it's there for a reason, right? Medi-Cal in California and Medicaid in other states, it's there for a reason. But quite honestly, you have no say, right? You're spending down assets. Usually no options where you're going to go. You're kind of listening to the states advising you where you're going to stay. But the big thing for Christian Scientists too is they're not Rinky friendly. In other words, they're not Christian Science facility friendly. That's a big deal because we know Medicare is, and certain types of the long-term care policies we're going to show you today where they pay cash, they are, right? And the last option, quite honestly, is, hey, who wants to go buy a traditional long-term care policy where I know I'm going to put all this money in and I'm never going to use it? So it's kind of like buying auto insurance or home insurance again. I'm putting all this money in there. And I know, Rick, me and you, right? We're never going to use it. But we know it's essentially, it's money that people, it's gone, right? It's just gone, paying premiums. And because the long-term care insurance industry is such a disaster right now, the traditional policies, it's just, we've seen CalPERS, right, with a huge $3.5 billion settlement and insurance companies raising premiums every year. I mean, I saw one lady, Rick, and she goes, Jim, I got a notice from one of the well-known insurance companies saying, listen, they just raised my rates 50% and they told me next year they're going up 25%. What do I do, right? I think they want them to drop their policies after paying on them for some 15, 20 years. So that's what I'm seeing out there every day, quite honestly.
Yeah, and I think that's why when we're looking at these new plans, it's nice that they're not use it or lose it,
right?
And we can get guarantees so that we know the money's there when it's needed.
That's exactly right. I think we're going to talk about some asset-based long-term care plans, which I've talked to many Christian Scientists because it's an excellent way to leverage your money. Rick, we've even used, I hate to talk about annuities now, but I know we've used Global Atlantic annuity. It's a great way to leverage, right, your monies. I've seen people, I think you were telling me about a friend, right, up in was it the Northwest that used a Global Atlantic annuity for care?
Oh, actually, that was my dad.
Okay.
So it's one where my mom is uninsurable and has been for years. But with my dad, he had an annuity that wasn't performing very well. And so we looked at that, and we could do a tax-free exchange of that annuity into a global Atlantic annuity. And in his case, we got twice the benefit of what we put in. And that
Right.
was because it was 15 months after he had a quadruple bypass.
Okay.
Most people that are healthy are going to get 3 times what they put in. So if they put 100,000 in, now they have 300,000 for long-term care.
I mean,
And
think about that for a second, right? Because you go, well, gee, if I self-fund $100,000, gee, I've got it in my CD earning minus 0% or whatever I'm getting on my CD. But think about the leverage when you use that annuity, and all of a sudden it doubles or triples, right? Right away from day one, you get approved, and your 100 or 200,000 turns into 300,000 or $600,000 for long-term care. I mean, that's incredible leverage, right, with annuities.
yeah,
And you're right, I do believe they allow the exchanges. And I was reading, I'm not sure if that's true too. What if you have an annuity that, for example, it's got a very low basis, maybe it's $50,000, it's now worth 150. Is there some tax advantage? Can I move that into one of the global Atlantic annuities?
yes, you can move that, and it's tax-free. So we're moving it from
So the
one
gain,
annuity to
I don't
another.
have to worry about that $100,000 gain then in that example.
No, don't have to worry about it. No tax on the transfer.
Okay.
So we can get it
So-
in the right spot.
So I can take money that I know is going to be taxed, and if I want to use it for care, that would be like my nest egg instead of my CD. If I had it there and moved it to that annuity or from one annuity to another, then I know I've got it there, even though I'm not going to pay tax on it as long as I use it for long-term care purposes.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Huh. That's not
It's a
bad.
great way to
I
leverage.
know. Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about asset-based long-term care, which I think is important too. It's a new concept that's been around. When the long-term care industry, right, is upside down. Some people know it, some don't. But I do talk to a lot of Christian Scientists out there that you have these policies you've had for years, and you're getting notices on a second or third rate increase, and you're asking me, what should I do? Well, the insurance industry looked at using life insurance. And the reason why life insurance works, you have all the guarantees Rick talked about. So I can use long-term care as a rider or a chronic rider on a life insurance policy. And the reason that works so well is because it's simply a multiplier, right? We show the example, if you take $100, give it to the insurance company, right? You have to be healthy enough to get it, Rick. But you can turn that into 3 to 4 times that amount, and then it continues to grow. I've seen some people, depending on age, use it 5 times, put in 100,000 over a period of time, turn into 400,000 or 500,000. And then we can also add some type of inflation protection on there, right? Because we know inflation is getting to be a real issue right now. And you see that money grow. I've seen some plans where we started with 100,000 and projected and guaranteed at age 84, 85 when you need it, turns into $500,000 or $600,000, Rick, for benefit. I mean, these are real life examples. I think that people just don't understand it, right? You hear the word life insurance sometimes, and I think people tune out and go, I don't need life insurance. But these are different type of policies. If you decide, I've got this policy, I know some I use in California, you can get all of your money back in the end of the 5th year. So if you wanted to cash out, you get it back. Or the other example, my business partner passed away a few years ago, and we had long-term care policies, the old-fashioned ones, but he passed away, was 2 days in the hospital. And his wife came up to me and said, gee, Jim, that was, thank God we had that long-term care policy. We paid on for 18 years, right? That really, really helped on at the end. And I understood she was frustrated because all those monies she put in over 18 years, or Dawn put into the policy, are gone. We got nothing back. If they had this new asset-based long-term care plan right now, Pat, his wife, would have got a tax-free death benefit with more than what they put into the policy. Right, Rick? Tax-free.
Yeah.
So to me, it makes sense, right? If you need it, you've got it for care. If you decide you want to cash out at some point, you can. You get whatever the cash value is, whether it's depends on 60, 70, 80%, 100%. It depends on the policy. But the nice thing, if you pass away, it turns into a tax-free death benefit. Even if you use some of the benefit, right, they still, remainder goes to you in a tax-free death benefit or goes to your heirs.
Yeah. No, I like it because it checks off a lot of boxes in the planning. And it really is, none of us, look at retirement and say, well, I'm expecting to be in a hospital bed or in a
Right.
nursing facility. When we look at retirement, we're with our family, we're on a beach, we're golfing, whatever it is that we enjoy. But it's funny when I do a lot of speaking, 70% at least will need long-term care.
Right.
I tend to speak to only the 30%.
You're
Because,
right.
most people don't want to, a lot of people don't want to face the reality of this could happen. And there again, with proper planning, we're making sure that we have a plan in place that accounts for everything going great. But also if things go a little bit sideways, we have a plan that works for you.
Right. You have a plan. Yeah.
You
You
have
need
the
a plan. You really do.
Now, as we start looking, at other ways to improve your plan, sometimes we'll look at the long-term care and it doesn't work. Sometimes we can reposition your assets, whether they're investment accounts, whether they are retirement accounts. We can reposition them into life insurance and add some great benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the long-term care policies, even the hybrid policies, don't work, because of age or other issues. They're not a perfect fit. So we can take those accounts that may not be performing as well as they need to be, or we can look at it and see what assets can we reposition to get a better result. And we'll pay this sometimes lump sum, sometimes we'll pay over a set period of time. It all comes with how we're trying to design the benefit. But with this life insurance policy, there again, we want to make sure this is a life insurance policy that is growing cash value. There again, remember, part of the focus on this plan is you. We want to make sure you're taken care of. And with that, really with that cash value, if we've set it up right, it can be set up so that it's tax-free, so that you can access those cash values during your lifetime. And here's what I like. It's for whatever you want. If you want to take this, on a cruise around the world, this is a great place to get money that is tax-free. There again, you can have your retirement accounts and other accounts. I just went through somebody's this morning, and they have a lot of assets. They've got a lot of retirement accounts. Every time they touch the money, it's taxable. Now we can reposition some of this so that it's tax-free. Use it when you need it for whatever you want. There again, you can use it for your long-term care. And, you get the care where you want.
Right.
That's a big part of this with long-term care. It's not just getting the care, but it's getting the care that you want and where you want.
And that really applies to Christian Scientists, Rick, because, for example, if somebody's going to Ardenwood or another Christian Science facility, a lot of the old reimbursement policies that are out there, they're not, for example, Ardenwood is accredited, right? But they're not considered, then you run into insurance issues. But with cash coming out of a life insurance policy, you can use it wherever you want. You can stay at Ardenwood. You can stay at a Christian Science facility. You can stay at home. No one is telling you how to spend your money and then how to get reimbursed. It's your money. Oh, there we go. No restrictions, right? I love it. And we've used this policy for some Christian Scientists already. It just takes a while to get used to saying, wait, you're buying life insurance for long-term care purposes. But I just love it because it fits so many needs, especially when there's no restrictions on the money. I can't emphasize that enough. I know John will agree that that's the best plan to have if you're going to stay at a Christian Science facility, something where there's no restrictions.
Yeah, and we want you to really have what you want when you want it. And so it's making sure that we design that plan, and if it's using the life insurance, that it's set up to where you can use this money. You don't have to wait, till you pass away and somebody else gets to use the money.
Right.
We want to make sure that it's designed during your life so you can use the money.
Mhm.
Of course, it's life insurance. And if there's, with all life insurance, there's going to be a death benefit. There again, that death benefit can go to the family and help them with whatever legacy you're passing on there. Or you can split some of that death benefit over to others or charities and go ahead and start that giving, that legacy as you want. And if we do this all, it can all be done in a tax-free environment. This
Right.
isn't anything out of bounds. It's making sure that we stay within the tax code, but it really can create tax-free growth and tax-free income when you need it.
And the IRS is telling you, those are the codes, they're telling you it's available, and yet people go, well, I'm not sure if that's a good deal, is this legal? The Department of Treasury sets these regulations, and life insurance is awesome because it's a tax-free death benefit, and you're really leveraging your dollars, right? If I've got, I don't know, whatever in the CD, $200,000, and I want to feed that into a life insurance policy over a period of time, or like you said, Rick, a lump sum. All of a sudden, instead of 200,000, if I pass away, now my beneficiaries get 500,000. If I want to take care of my adult children who are saying, what about me? I can absolutely make sure they've got money, but I can also help my charities. As before, I wanted to make sure my family was taken care of. And look, the IRS is telling you, right, Rick? It's tax-free. I can now not only leave it to my adult children and my grandchildren, but I can also leverage that money and take care of charities that I wanted to, and I didn't think I had the means because I was so worried about taking care of my family. Now I can still help others with a tax-free death benefit.
And that's really what we want to do as we're putting this plan together. There again, we've made sure you're taken care of. We make sure your family is taken care of. We can make sure that those other, whether it's charities or other institutions, we want to make sure that this is the legacy that you want to leave behind. And if you think about your legacy, it's not just about passing the assets. We know we're passing assets, we're passing accounts and investments and everything else, but it's who are you passing them to? What is that legacy that you want to be remembered for? As we build out this plan, I think there again, one of the things that we have to discuss is how to protect your legacy. As you're building up these assets, we want to make sure that it's protected from creditors, that you're able to access your money and your assets without creditors being involved and without unnecessary taxes. So that all comes as part of the plan. It's just making sure when we're developing this plan out that we address what potential creditors can happen. And I'll use this example in a lot of speaking is, if you run over me in the crosswalk, I'm going to sue you. And if I'm in the crosswalk, that I'm probably going to win. So when I win, what am I taking away from you? Is it just the car insurance that you have, or is it your house, your bank accounts, your investment accounts? We just want to make sure that what's at risk, and we adjust appropriately. And so everybody's risk is going to be a little bit different. But there again, as we build this legacy, as we know that we're going to pass on this legacy, let's make sure that we address what the hidden risks could be too. Finally, it's making sure that we, as part of your legacy, if you want to do charitable giving, that we look at how best to do that. And part of that's when do you want to do the charitable giving? Now, later, in the future, all three? It's a way that you can, not only get, there's tax benefits, there's income tax benefits, estate tax benefits of giving to charity. Congress has set up charitable giving in the in our tax laws to encourage giving more to charity so that you can create tax deductions. But part of your legacy, if it's going to include charitable giving, let's figure out when and how. And finally, multi-generational planning. We want to think beyond just, you, your kids. How about your grandkids? How about extended family? We can put plans in place that literally can last forever until it runs out of money. And it depends on what's, we can pick and choose which state we set these types of trust up. But we can think that legacy beyond, probably what you've been thinking. And I find that this really happens when I'm talking to younger clients that may not have kids yet. They have a tough time thinking about multiple generations because they haven't even seen their kids. Now, once they see kids, now they start thinking longer. They start thinking, oh, what about, potentially grandkids? Well, I can tell you when the grandkids come along, then all of a sudden you're wanting to benefit more. What more can I do, not only to help them financially, but how can I help them get ahead? How can I help them get the education that they need? All of this can come as part of your plan, but we want to make sure that we do it in the right way. As we talk charitable planning, and you've seen this slide before, who's charitable planning for? Well, it's for those that are charitably inclined. And I'm guessing everybody that's on this call is charitably inclined. But I also want to tell you, it's for those that may not be charitably inclined. It may be for those that are just looking to reduce their income taxes or just looking to reduce their estate taxes. Well, guess what? They all end up in the exact same spot. And so when I work with clients, I don't care if I'm coming from a true charitable giving perspective, or if we're coming from a pure tax reductions, perspective. What I usually find is when I start talking about reducing taxes using charitable giving, I find that most people really are charitably inclined. They were more focused on protecting their family and didn't know that they could also help and benefit a charity in the process. So there again, it goes back to the way the tax code is set up. Charitable planning is encouraged by the tax code. There's things that charities can do that Uncle Sam can never accomplish. And that's why charitable planning, charitable giving is so encouraged in the tax code, because I don't care how much taxes you pay to Washington, they still will not do the good that charities can do. So putting them into your plan is a great thing. There again, when can you give to charity? Now, in the future, or at death. All of those are great timing. It's just what fits into your plan. And I find a lot of us do give currently, whether it's to the church, whether it's to the local youth programs. But it's one, as we decide how to give more, those opportunities are going to come along. There again, at death, we can, if it's designed right, we can give a lot. One of the strategies we've talked about in the past is a donor advised fund. Donor advised funds are set up in a way that you can take currently, if let's just say that you've got cash, you want to give away $10,000, but you're not sure if it should go to one charity. How can I grow this over time? Well, you can put it into a donor advised fund. What you put in is going to be tax or deductible, fully tax deductible. Now it's in a donor advised fund. You can manage that asset, manage that investment, and decide over time which charity or charities you want to give that to. The only restriction is it has to be a 501c3 charity. So I work with a lot of clients that aren't sure when they want to give it to the charity, or they want to spread it out over time, but they want to take a big tax deduction now. So we'll go ahead and put it in the donor advised fund. They get to manage it and dole that out to the charities at whatever schedule they want to. Now, a couple others that we've talked about is, one is the Charitable Remainder Trust. With the Charitable Remainder Trust, this is a great way to help avoid those large, tax years. So you can put money, go ahead and take your highly appreciated stock, real estate, other investments, whatever that is, as long as it doesn't have debt on it. You can put the Charitable Remainder Trust in place and put those assets into the trust, and the trust can sell those assets tax-free and reinvest into other investments that you want it to be in. Well, here's the benefits. The biggest benefit is now you're going to get income for your lifetime. So we can set that up that it's going to pay you 6, 7, 8% per year, and there again, the higher the percentage that you take back, the lower your income tax deduction. But you're going to get a deduction for what you put into the trust, what's eventually going to go to the charity. And over your lifetime, that's grown, that's paid out to you. But at death, the charity is going to get whatever's left in the trust. So this is a great way as you start looking at your planning. If you're selling real estate, if you're selling, a large stock portfolio, there's a lot of times that it's more advantageous to you to go ahead and put it in the Charitable Remainder Trust. You get a big tax deduction now to offset other income. You get that lifetime income. And the thing to remember, think of it as your charitable pension. That charitable pension is going to pay out to you every year for the rest of your life. Or if you're married, husband and wife, we can do joint life. But then at the end, you're going to pass on an endowment-sized gift to the charity that you've identified. Now, the reverse of this is a charitable lead trust. Now, a charitable lead trust is there again, if we have other cash investments, things that we want to sell, we can move those into the charitable lead trust. Now, this one works a little bit different because now what's going to happen is the biggest benefit is there again, you're going to get a large tax deduction for doing the charitable lead trust. During the trust term, so if we set this trust up for 10 years, 15 years, we're going to set a payment amount. And that payment amount, let's say we put in $1 million and we decide that we want to pay out 5% a year to charity. $50,000 a year now goes to charity for the next 10 years. And you're going to receive a tax deduction based off of that stream of income over the next 10 years that'll go to charity. Here's what's nice for the charity. Well, the Charitable Remainder Trust, the charity knew they got that big endowment at the end of your life, and the charities appreciate those types of gifts. But there again, charities also have to survive year to year and provide the benefits that they do. Well, now if they know that you put in place a charitable lead trust, that charitable lead trust is going to give them in that example, $50,000 a year for the next 10 years. That allows the charity to budget for that. And at the end of the trust term, whatever's left in the trust or whatever the trust has grown to, if you've invested it right, that's going to come back to you. And there again, that can be used for, to pass on to your kids, your grandkids, or if you need it, can be used for your retirement. All of these are great opportunities to provide a legacy, for your kids, and also provide that legacy to the charity that you've been working with. At the end of the day, all of this planning can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's one where the planning there again is based off of your goals. All of these tools, and there's more tools that Jim and I both work with. all of these tools are just potential tools to help you achieve the goals that you want and to make sure that in the end, you're getting the result that you want. We don't want to leave anything to chance. We don't want to leave a hole. Jim and I have been in meetings and together where we've had to be the ones there at the end helping to clean up the mess.
Right.
And we don't enjoy cleaning up the mess. Nobody enjoys cleaning up the mess. Let's eliminate the mess from up front by doing the proper planning. But we appreciate everybody taking the time to be on. And like always, if you have questions, Jim and I are available for questions and happy to help as much as we can.
That's right.
Rick and Jim, that was an outstanding summary of all that we've done these last 6 months. I loved every minute of it. I hope that we get a lot of people watching the replays of this and those that have been joining us today. Thank you for covering all the key points. I thought it was outstanding and makes a clear case for planning. I loved so many things that one of the things I wrote down, getting the care you want, where you want. That is so important. Both you, Jim had mentioned that in terms of long-term care insurance, but also just this planning that we're talking about, Rick, it just, it is just essential. We don't have any questions right now. If anybody wants to put a question in right now, please do so. We will have some questions on Thursday, but let's just wait a couple minutes. But take a moment now if you want to write a question. But I just also loved
Rick.
Go ahead.
Question.
Go ahead, Jim.
So Rick, you've been doing this a long time with charitable remainder trust. What seems to be the biggest issue? I mean, I see people that want to help like a 501c3 like Ardenwood or something. What happens when, I know you may have like my parents and then you have adult children. What becomes the obstacle? Is there an obstacle because of the adult children don't want to see that money go to a charity? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, people have a tendency to worry about what about me? And yet they still want to be able to have mom and dad help a charity. What's the biggest obstacle you see?
I think that's probably the biggest obstacle is they're trying to solve for their family, for themselves, for the charity. All of those are valid questions. So when we do a charitable remainder trust, in fact, I've got one that we just finished. And the charitable remainder trust, we moved about $1.5 million of property into the trust. And that generated a large tax deduction. It generated a $400,000 deduction. Well, what we're going to do now, it's going to create an income stream back to mom and dad during their lifetime. But at death, that 1.5 million of asset is gone. It's going to the charity. There again, it's a charity that mom and dad have been involved with, for the last 20 plus, 30 plus years. And what we're going to do is we've gone ahead and got a life insurance policy on mom and dad, so that when mom and dad pass away, that there's now $2 million that will pay out to the kids, income and estate tax free. So if you think about it, start looking at the winners here. Mom and dad win. They've been able to take an asset that was a burden on them. It was rental real estate. Mom and dad don't want to fix toilets anymore. It was a burden physically. Right? Yeah. They get income now for their lifetimes. They get to benefit the charity that they've got a long history with. With this charity, it's a life-changing endowment. And finally, the kids are taken care of just like mom and dad would want it. They're taken care of. If you think about this, who did we eliminate in the planning? We eliminated Uncle Sam. Because of the tax deductions, now mom and dad get to use that to offset other income and pay less in taxes. We don't have any tax when it's going to charity. And when the kids receive their money, they don't have to worry about income or estate taxes. So it really is a win-win plan all the way through. other than Uncle Sam. And
Yeah.
there again, this is not any kind of out in the, you know, stratosphere kind of planning. This is very vanilla planning. It's encouraged. And I think it's the reason I don't see a lot of charitable remainder trust. I just don't think a lot of professionals understand them, so they don't talk about them.
Exactly. That's what I
And-
found.
And I think if more individuals knew about it and really how they can benefit from it, I think we would see the number of charitable remainder trusts just go up exponentially.
Yeah, everybody wins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Rick, thank you. We don't have any more questions. So, and thank you all again for joining us for this webinar series. Above all, we hope this has been educational and helpful. I think, as I say, this summary was just outstanding just now. You know, there's no good reason to avoid this process, as was just mentioned. Remember the acrostic I shared a few months ago for the word plan? Prayerful listening, acting now. Acting now will bless your family, loved ones, and organizations you support and believe in. Include the nonprofits and charities you most want to sustain for future generations. Please feel free to share the replays of these webinars with family and friends. You'll find them easily on our website, ardenwood.org. We'll see you again this Thursday afternoon for one more Q&A session. Same time, same Zoom link, and you'll receive a reminder. We'll be in touch by email to invite you to our next webinar on Medicare for Christian Scientists, scheduled for 2022. That would be Tuesday and Thursday, January 18th and 20th. So all of us here at Ardenwood, and Jim and Rick too, wish you and your families a very happy Christmas and a harmonious start to the new year. So
Thanks,
goodbye
everybody.
for now.
Thank you.